Have you ever had a paranormal experience? What was it like? When I was around 3, I lived in this big house in southern Tacoma. It was Christmas Eve at probably around 2:30 or 3. So naturally, I was an excited little boy. Anyway, I remember just being asleep and then suddenly just being jolted awake. Like something grabbed me, spun me around like I was a skateboard and then was gone. I was then awake and looked at the entrance to my room and swear I saw something like a long coat or cape being dragged around the corner of my doorframe and heading towards my sister's room. Honestly, it kind of looked like how the Grim Reaper's robe drags on the ground. I got up scared out of my mind and checked my sister's room, and obviously nothing was there. So I ran to my parents' room, passing the stairs, which scared me to no content. I jumped onto my parents' bed, and at first my dad was kind of pissed because it was 2:30 in the morning. I don't remember a lot, but my mom says that I started telling them that someone was in the house and that someone grabbed me. So my dad got up and checked the whole freaking 3-story house, which took around 20 minutes or so. I ended up sleeping with them the rest of the night. My mom thinks it was just a dream, but I know what I saw and I know what happened. My sister also recalls feeling on edge on the first story of the house, which was underground, but it wasn't officially a basement. I also remember hearing footsteps upstairs when no one was up there. One time, I was watching car videos on the computer alone upstairs, and then this weird feeling just told me that I had to run the heck downstairs. So I did. Weird stuff. At one of the houses I lived at in college, my roommate's prior had lived there for a few years and believed there was a female ghost by the name of Phyllis that lived there. When I moved in, I didn't believe there was a ghost and if anything, thought Phyllis was a male name, so I joked that she was a he. After a few months of living there and claiming Phyllis was a male ghost, me and only one roommate were home and were in the kitchen. The bathroom door was wide open, almost parallel to the open doorway which is in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, it just slowly made a 180 and shut completely in front of us. Later that night, my roommate and I were sitting in the living room, which was adjacent to the kitchen door opening, chatting. All of a sudden, we heard something fall in the kitchen, and she saw the bread fly off the counter. The bread was on the microwave, which laid about a foot inward on the counter, so if it were to have just fallen, it would have landed on the counter. The bread was across the doorway on the ground. That was what did it for me. I apologized to Phyllis and admitted she was a female ghost and respected her presence that moment on. When I was 11, we moved into our first owned home. I got the basement room with a bar at the back like it was a saloon. My bed was across from it. My favorite thing to do was read in bed. I'd never been scared of the dark and would often read by the light of a street light after my parents said lights out when I was very small in the old apartment. For some reason, every time I tried to read in this room, I'd get the feeling that someone was standing behind the bar looking at me, so I'd slap the book down to look. Nobody there, obviously. Sometimes I'd even get up to look behind the bar. Nothing. It got so bad that I started sleeping on my stomach with the covers over my head. Then one night, same as always, I finish reading, pull the string over my head to shut off the ceiling light, and pull the covers over my head, leaving only a tiny crack so I can see my alarm clock. Barely a minute after this ritual, a hand grabs my shoulder and pulls me up as if to flip me over. I freak out and grab for the light string, but it swings away, and I do this utterly hilarious desperate arm-waving dance to get it. Light turns on. Nobody's there. I check behind the bar. Nothing. I go back to bed. A year or two later after continuing to feel the watching, same scenario, except this time instead of my shoulder, the hand grabs one of my legs and moves it across the bed. I vividly remember thinking frantically, my muscles aren't moving. This isn't me doing this, this isn't a cramp. What the flurbo? This time I sit up, turn on the light, and yell angrily, cut the game. I am trying to fleeting sleep. I turn off the light and go to sleep. Nothing like that ever happens again, but the watched feeling remains until I leave for college. I find out later that my room had been a man cave for the previous owner, who died in the house of complications from lung disease. I remember this one, as this was only about 6 years ago, when I was 8. I woke up in the middle of the night one night to dead silence, like silence is one thing, but it was dead silent. At the time, I had a bunk bed with a desk and small couch underneath the bed. The only issue was that the bed was less than 2 feet from the ceiling, which was annoying because it was hard to sit up without hitting my head. I wasn't tired when I woke up, which was weird because it was super dark outside and in my room too, other than one small nightlight. I looked over through the wooden siding of my bunk bed to look at the rest of my room and I immediately froze. I actually was scared fleebless of what I was looking at. The room was almost pitch black due to the nightlight only lighting up one corner, but it was still visible. It was a dark outline of something. A ghost, a shadow person, a demon, whatever you want to call it. It was there. I probably blinked 20 to 30 times to see if it would disappear. But it slowly got closer. I quietly but quickly turned over, covered my head with my sheets and closed my eyes. I could feel it over me, looking at me. The issue was, like I said earlier, I wasn't tired. I laid there for probably 20 minutes feeling scared and fully awake before I finally drifted off and woke up to the next day and have never experienced anything like that again. Thank God. I have a few. I was laying down in bed and shortly after laying down, I heard a deep masculine voice in one ear and a soft feminine voice in the other ear, whispering. Another time, I had flipped over in bed and noticed someone in my doorway. Head, shoulders, and figure of a body. Thinking it was my dad, I asked what he was doing standing there. It disappeared into thin air. Middle of the day, I had walked into my room to get something. I suddenly felt someone grab my ankle and I came close to face planting. Assuming I tripped, I tried to find a source near my chair. There was absolutely nothing around, and I know for a fact it was not my chair. My ex was in the basement playing on my PC, was getting replacement parts, and had no other place to store. I come down to check on him, and he looks panicked. I asked what was wrong. He asked me if I came down the stairs before. I told him I didn't and he proceeded to tell me he saw a girl who looked like me crawl down the stairs. Think the grudge, and he thought it was me playing a prank until he realized it wasn't. My ex's house is a well-known haunted site. Every few nights when I'd get ready to get in bed, I'd hear footsteps through his living room and then stop in his doorway. He had carpet and it sounded like an adult human walking. When I'd turn to greet him, no one would be there. My ex was generally in the bathroom when this would happen, which is on the other side of the house. I went inside my uncle's house to use the restroom. To get to that hallway, you would walk straight towards a staircase, but the railing and side would face you. I used the restroom, felt something uneasy, and turned to the stairs. A woman with short brown hair, a brown dress with a white apron was standing there, leaning on the railing. She stared. I stared. I walked away. I asked my uncles if a woman died in the house and they said yes. I described what I saw and they believed that was what they were told she looked like. In my first apartment, I would frequently see moving shadows that weren't being cast by anything. My cat definitely saw them because I have never seen him look so terrified in my life. He would put his ears back and stare at them in horror and occasionally hiss. When the shadows were near my room, my fire alarm would keep going off relentlessly and unplugged speakers kept playing static noise. 4 other people also saw the shadows. At one point, my roommate's girlfriend fell limp and couldn't move for a while after being around it and cried for like a half hour afterwards and couldn't speak. I had a similar experience where I looked too closely at it and could no longer move my body and felt like there was something inside my head. It happened very briefly. The whole situation went on for months. When I was around 11, my sister, 17 at the time, and I shared a bedroom. She had been out with friends all night one summer and I was up late, doodling in a notebook in bed. I had the lights in the bedroom on and there was a TV beside my bed. An older glass screen TV. It was around 1 a.m. and I glanced up at the TV, which was turned off and saw my sister walking out of the door behind me. As a typical annoying little sister, I went to follow her and ask what she and her friends did. When I got into the stairwell, all of the lights were off. No one was in the bathroom next to our bedroom. No lights that I could see on downstairs, odd. So I make my way down the stairs figuring she was home late and trying not to wake our mom and dad to save herself from getting into trouble. Still no sign of her. I walk into the garage and look out the window to see her car is still gone. And that is when it finally hit me that it wasn't my sister that I saw in the reflection of the TV. I ran back inside, sprinted up the stairs and into my parents' bedroom to tell them I was pretty sure I had seen a ghost. They were not having it as they'd been asleep for hours. So I retreated to my bedroom and kept all of the lights on, covered the TV with a small blanket, and waited for my sister to get home. My family teased me about that for quite some time. But I swear, I saw a young woman with long blonde hair, wearing an older style dress walk out of my bedroom door. I wasn't tired, I wasn't scared previously, and even to start, I just thought it was my sister.